No, I'm happy to do that. So welcome everyone to the what month are we in now? September meeting of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Network at the BSA. I will remind everyone that today's session is being recorded. We also are planning on having a participatory discussion today. So Tony Ransom, one of the co-chairs of this knowledge community, is going to take us through the outline of a new diversity, equity, and inclusion challenge that he is developing in partnership with BosNOMA. And we're really excited for that. We hope that it will be, like I said, a lively discussion. If you have questions as we're going through, we want to make sure that this is informal. Please go ahead and use the raise hand function, and I will alert Tony that that you have a question if there's something that you're unclear of as we go through the slides. And at the end, we'll save some time for an open discussion on the conclusion of Tony's presentation. So Tony, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right, good afternoon. My name is Tony Ransom, and I am a co-chair with the EDI network. And I am also the vice president of the Northeast region of NOMA. I'm here today to introduce you to a national initiative that is supported by NOMA, the DEI Challenge. You may ask questions at any time as we go through this information. Let's go to the next slide, please. I guess, first of all, for those who do not know, who is NOMA? NOMA is the National Organization of Minority Architects, a 50-year-old organization that represents and supports the aspirations of minority architects. It was conceived in 1971, AIA convention in Detroit, Michigan, and we will be returning to Detroit next month for its annual convention to celebrate its 50th anniversary. Next slide, please. The DEI challenge, what is it, and why is it? As you know, structural inequities do exist in our society, and they do filter down into all elements of our society. One of the results of this situation is that minorities are not always encouraged to pursue the architectural profession, much less remain in it. Next. Okay. The Boston chapter of NOMA's Northeast region, otherwise known as the Great Eight, is launching the DEI Challenge to assist those firms that wish to transform their organizations by incorporating DEI principles. For those who may have been with us last year, we did cover this idea about firms incorporating EDI principles, and we were able to garner some information and put it in reference on the website for others to review. Hopefully, this may provide a template or framework that firms may use going forward and put DEI into their firm manuals. Next slide. I would try not to move too fast. These slides are a little wordy, but I was trying to get as much information as possible. Okay, the challenge is a voluntary commitment to supply data that will help to provide metrics on a firm's participation and their progress of its transformation. Next. Okay. The challenge consists of 14 action items. Participants will be recognized by BosNOMA on our website, social media outlets, and our events. Additionally, BosNOMA will provide support and resources to help the participants implement the action items. BosNOMA is asking all DEI Challenge participants to take the pledge to perform the prerequisites and actions of the program on an ongoing basis. Next. And now the pledge. Okay, let's move forward. Okay. The action items are as follows. First, there are mandatory prerequisites. Quickly review their acknowledgement of the buy-in by your leadership, office-wide DEI trainings, commit to a zero tolerance policy on racism and discrimination in your firm, and be a champion and advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion. That does mean speaking up and showing up for your BIPOC colleagues. BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Next, please. We then have the standard requirements or base requirements for the action items. You may notice that the weighted point system values have not been entered into these standards requirements. This presentation has been designed to be used as a template for all of the Northeast chapters. The weight applied to each action item will be determined locally and will be influenced by the social, political, and economics of their locale. Next, please. We then have the advanced requirements. Now, it says you must meet all standard requirements plus the following. I would say firms must address the standard base requirements and then add in these next 4 to be considered at an advanced level. In some instances, depending on the locale of the chapter, all these things may not be easily met. And as I said before, they will adjust the point structure as they feel is appropriate for their areas. Next, please. Okay, the DEI Excellence Requirements. Firms must address the advanced requirements plus the following, the last 4 in this action items. Okay, let's move forward. Now that you have an idea about the purpose of the challenge and its requirements, well, how does it actually work? As I said before, there's a voluntary reporting to BosNOMA or any of the other local chapters on an annual basis. There's an annual diversity survey that is mandatory. You can pursue points in any of the 14 categories. There's a maximum threshold of 100 points, but we try to let firms of different sizes achieve at least minimum points to be involved. So small firms, medium-sized firms may not have to achieve as many points as a larger firm, which may have more resources and opportunity to achieve more of the points in the structure. All our DEI Challenge allies will be recognized by BosNOMA website, in our social media, and on other platforms that may arise. And we will provide firms with support and resources for implementation as needed. I think one of those idea of support is that we would like to have bi-monthly meetings of people representing each firm that has volunteered to be involved. And what we would like is to have a meeting where they can assist one another in meeting the various categories action items within the program. We found from our other chapters that have been doing this, that is a good way to for them to know one another and how they can be of service to one another, which is part of that collaborative process that we're always looking for in the field of architecture. Next slide, please. Okay, now as far as that, now that we hopefully have piqued your interest, how do we move forward? Basically, you know, there will be a DEI coordinator who will schedule intake meetings with each interested firm to begin the documentation process. We'll provide those resources and references as needed to support each firm. We will list all the firms once again on our website as a DEI partner. The DEI coordinator will conduct quarterly check-ins with all participating firms to assess progress and provide any additional support that they may need. Firms will report their metrics to BosNOMA on an annual basis. And in 2022, all participating firms will be recognized as DEI Challenge Allies. BosNOMA would actually like to officially start the challenge at the beginning of January, with annual progress reporting hopefully in early or late November, so we can designate how well firms are doing before we start the next challenge year. Next slide, please. Well, thank you for accepting this challenge. We hope that you will. I and my fellow co-chairs, Dan and Rachel, would like to thank you for participating in today's event, and we hope that your firms will consider participating in the DEI challenge. Next slide. Okay, for now, any additional information on the challenge can be directed to me. You can use one of my email addresses, edward.ransom@noma.net, to reach out to me regarding the challenge. If your firm is interested in participating, or if you're a BosNOMA member and would like to volunteer your time to actually collect the various data being submitted by the firms. Also, could you please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or check out our website, bosnoma.org. Oh, I see someone has raised their hand with a question. So I was hoping to get questions before now, but please, Michelle, would you like to unmute and give me your question?
Hi, this is Michelle. I just had one quick question about the timeline on when firms that potentially want to participate would have to like submit and reach out to people about this.
Actually, I'm considering this as this being the initial meeting regarding this, that I can begin to accept interest, emails of interest right away. As I said, there are a couple of little nuances we're still working out, but as I said, I think we want to do this on a yearly basis, so we actually will officially start gauging people's responses to the challenge in January. So we do have time, but I am certainly willing to take any information or request of interest now, because that'll help me also fill out the number of volunteers that I will need from BosNOMA to assist with this challenge. So anytime, I'll be glad to get any information that you have.
Perfect, thank you.
Jill, I see you have your hand up.
Is it possible to get a copy or copies of the slides so that we can share them within the firm for
Sure.
buy-in?
Absolutely. I can get you a PDF of these slides later today. Please put your email in the chat so I can garner that right away. And okay. Any other questions? Anyone else have their hand raised? Lonnie? Oh, that was a chat info. Okay, let's see what we have here.
I'm just putting my email in the chat. Thanks, Tony.
Okay. Okay, I see other people would like copies of the presentation. Do we have any questions at all regarding how this might work? If you would like to volunteer, please put that in the chat. Oh my goodness, was I that concise that there are no need for questions? Question, time left. Well,
Tony,
as
it
I
looks like
said,
Neil, sorry, Tony, it looks like Neil has a hand up.
okay. Neil, your question, please.
If we would like to volunteer in gathering the
We can't hear you for some reason. You may want to, you don't sound like you're muted, but you're coming in very low.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, I was going to ask if we want to volunteer to gather the metrics from different firms. Are we going to have another like information session to see how we're going to tackle that?
Yes, as I said, I think for now, as I'm trying to choose my coordinator for this, everyone can just send me an email with their interest. You're already on my list.
Awesome.
It's too late, can't get off now. But if everyone can just send me an email at edward.ransom@noma.net, then I can compile all the people who are interested and I can set up a separate meeting as to how we're going to move forward and the various steps that we may still are cleaning up before we totally officially launch in January. We hope to be starting to garner information from the various firms before then, because I already have intake forms that I may also be able to send out so people can see the information we're looking for and how it's laid out to lock them in if they're really interested, so we can begin to collect that information in advance. Mark, Scott, I see you have your hand up, and then we'll go to Joanna.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Is the intent here to also publicly share the information, the results that individual firms post?
Actually, no, we're not looking at this point of publicly sharing it. I think it's just for us to gauge for now if it becomes a request based upon the information you're submitting that and is, I guess, democratically agreed to by the participants, and we may find a way to share some of that information. We don't want to put everybody's information on Front Street just yet. Like I said, this is it's a volunteer thing. But if the volunteers feel after they have some meetings together about what they're doing, that they think they want more information published other than the fact that they are becoming a challenge ally and their names being on the website, etc., then we will definitely take that into consideration and make some adjustments to the program to accommodate those volunteers.
Wonderful, thanks.
Okay, Joanna?
Yes, so if you don't quite have, your firm maybe doesn't have all the 70 points required, is there sort of a process to get back to the 70 points? And is that addressed in the bi-monthly meetings you were talking about?
That's, yeah, I think the good reason to have the bi-monthly meetings, because in effect, the participants will also be assisting one another and how they're approaching getting things done. The whole point in the long run for me is to, for lack of a better term, have a homogenized scenario where we're all involved in, collaborating with one another for the betterment of the community. And if somebody has a great idea that might assist, if a large firm has a great idea that may actually assist a small firm, that would be helpful. Our Southern California group, which actually started this challenge back in 2020, they have firms ranging from 6 people up to 300 involved in the process. And I'm sure the cross-pollination of ideas is helping the small and mid-sized firms to look at ways they can best approach this to make it a reality within their firms. Okay.
Great.
Any other questions here? I'm looking.
Tony, there was just a question in the chat about making sure that the slides are shared. So in addition to sending that out to people, we can also talk with the BSA potentially about hosting the slides on the EDI Network's website.
Absolutely.
So that everyone knows too, a recording of this session will be made live within a week to 2 weeks after today on the session, on the website as well.
Yes. Okay, certainly we can do that. We can add that into what we've already been putting into the EDI website from last year. Absolutely, that would be very useful, I think, for the people. So anyone can access it, review it, and if it helps to encourage them to participate, absolutely.
Tony, I had a question.
Do we have any other questions? You know, I'll add something that, you know, one of the reasons we're also looking at this is that we find that throughout the profession, not just for the minority members, that there's some retention issues with people remaining in the profession. And I know that we used to have this economic cycle where like every 6 years, the economy would go up, and then the economy would fall off. And architects were sometimes the hardest hit when that economy dropped off. And people were no longer able to be employed. And in many cases, some people left the profession entirely. We're trying to combat that a little bit with this too, for all members of the profession, to keep it stable as possible. So we keep people involved in doing this work. Because we know as fast as things change, a lot of people who were caught in this last recession had their skills, let's say, atrophy. Their skill sets did not change with the times because they were not involved in the work. And I think we may have lost good people out of the profession because of that, because it's very hard to keep up with changing requirements of BIM, changing ways of doing business, changing ways of watching construction and using tablets, a host of different things, particularly involving technology, that people fall out of favor with and find it hard to sometimes work their way back into the positions that they had before. So anything we can do, even on this side of the ledger, to change that is something we're going to be trying to work on in the future. Zoe, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you. I saw a question in the chat that sort of triggered it for me. Is a formal relationship between the firm and BosNOMA required? Is there a level of engagement or a sponsorship or membership?
No, not necessarily so at all. I think, like I said, this is a volunteer scenario where firms will be volunteering to become part of the challenge. Previous relationship with BosNOMA is not required. We hope that there will be some future relationship issues with BosNOMA, but that is still up to the firm. If they like what we're trying to accomplish and what we're doing in the outside community, outside of architecture per se, and they wish to participate in other programs we have, such as Project Pipeline. That's a program where almost all the chapters in the country have like a little summer camp where they bring in junior high school students. They're mentored by college students who maybe used to be in the program before, to introduce young people to the field of architecture so that we can, as I say, have a pipeline for the next generation of architects coming along. We had our first Project Pipeline in Boston this summer. I think it was a 3-day event. And we picked up participants from, I think, Detroit and one person from Oregon who heard about us somehow or another and contacted our coordinator and actually joined local students in participating virtually in the summer camp. So the other things we're trying to get into, as I said, with this idea of retention, as if I'm teaching a course now at UMass on professional practice, and I've tried to stress with the people, the students, that once you graduate, you really should focus that first 5 years on getting registered. I guess with the way it works now, if you pass one course but don't pass one of the tests, but not all the remaining tests within 5 years, you start over again. But we're also finding that once people don't pursue the licensure early, that life begins to take over, and you find suddenly all these other responsibilities that you have are beginning to get in the way of your putting in the appropriate amount of time to be able to pass these tests and get licensed. We have a number in the profession, a number of seasoned architects who have never taken the exam and really hate being called intern architects. But that is a terminology I think that currently still exists with the American Institute of Architects. They may be considering making a change in that, but it hasn't happened yet, and I'm not sure when and if it will. So we really want to encourage people to also keep them within the profession to pursue licensure. So that is another thing we want to work on, and is included also within some of the requirements of this program. Niji, is that pronounced correctly?
Nitty.
Niji, okay, you raised your hand.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Please,
No
what's your
worries.
question?
My question was, this is a great topic because we've been talking about this not just with our other architect friends, but also with engineers and our consultants. And so I was curious if this program is only open to architecture firms, or if it's open beyond that, if anyone is interested.
Well, I think it's basically right now we're focusing on the AEC community, okay? So we want engineers, and if contractors are interested, fine, they should join us too, okay? Basically some of the allied professions, because we have allied professional members as members of our NOMA chapters. Okay, so we're open to others who are interested in the work that we're trying to do to become involved. So yes, engineering firms, our consultants, our contracting firms that we sometimes work with, or who would like to look at opportunities to work with us, we're definitely happy if they would be interested in the challenge too.
Excellent. This is a great initiative. Thank you.
Yeah, it's about collaboration within the entire industry, you know, and how we can better that, expand more opportunities. You know, when I look at this from another perspective too, I look at the words Black, Indigenous, and people of color, the BIPOC, you know, and we're pressing this because in looking at the numbers from the AIA and NCARB, et cetera, Blacks only 2.5% of registered architects. I think Hispanic and Asian are in the 6% range. But indigenous people of the United States, they really barely have numbers for. I heard yesterday, maybe it's at 0.5% of registered architects. So I'm looking, as I say, expanding everyone's horizons for me personally, this is something personal here, I have my own personal mission in what I do. I've been looking for, I'd say 50 years plus, how do we level the playing field in whatever we do in the United States? And it finally hit me about a year or so ago that maybe it's about your percentage of the population. If let's say Hispanics are 15% of the population, then we should be trying to help them become 15% of the registered architects. Blacks are 13.5%, the same. Indigenous people are basically 1.5% of the American population that we've been able to find numbers on. And what percentage you are in this US population, that should be the percentage of opportunity granted to you just for being a citizen. So my personal goal over the next 20 to 30 years is to try to do what I can to foster that. Now, right now, NOMA is looking at doubling numbers by 2030. But like I said, that won't get us to our percentages of the population. So I have a personal longer range goal of up to 30 years. Hopefully I'll be granted that many more years to see this happen. And I'm just, basically asking people to volunteer. I'm bringing you into my little army to try to get that done. And any way I can bring people to look at that bigger picture and work towards that through pipelines, through mentoring, going to high schools, junior high schools, as one of my EDI warriors, justice, equity, development, and inclusion, and hopefully getting firms to set aside a JEDI budget that when their staff do go to volunteer and mentor at junior high schools and high schools, they can actually build the time to the JEDI budget. Okay, so then we can gauge, they can gauge within themselves how well they're doing and how they're increasing the pipeline for people who might be interested in this profession and just need to know a little more about it to finally engage them and bring them in.
Tony, I'm just going to follow up. Nidhi had another really great question in the chat about volunteering and whether non-BosNOMA members can volunteer as part of this effort.
I think I'm certainly open to consider that, definitely. We haven't thought about, I was trying to glean from the people we already have engaged, but if others would like to consider participating, definitely send me an email, please. And because I'm trying to garner everyone who's interested. And so that I have another meeting, we look at this in another month or two, which we had discussed as part of the co-chairs. We'll get a better idea of how the interest is flowing towards doing this, and volunteers of all types, whether you volunteer to be a firm engaged or volunteer to help us collect and analyze the data, definitely required. So please, if you're interested, send me that email and we may be happy to bring you into the fold. Thank you very much for that interest. Okay, now we still have some time left, so I'm here to answer any and all questions people may have regarding the program. Or if you would just like to make a comment, or maybe there's something you might think would be useful to add to the program. Or whether you want to know if something is involved in a program, maybe I have an answer for you already. Whether it's part of the intake forms, whether it's part of the evaluation form that we're going to use, etc. Maybe someone has an idea of something maybe you haven't seen that should be considered. Maybe you'd all like to raise your hands and be volunteers. Let me scroll through real quick and see if I see any hands raised. Okay.
Looks like we have a question from Allie.
Allie, my
Hi,
BosNOMA president. Please,
Yes,
what is your question?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment and introduce myself to those who don't know me. I'm Allie Horowitz. I'm the BosNOMA president. And I just, in response to some comments that were made earlier and Joanna's question about firms that may not have 70 points, I just want to reiterate Tony's comments earlier that this is really a collaborative effort, and many firms might not have 70 points when they start, but the point isn't to say, hey, these are the firms that are already doing all these things and that, give them a gold star. The point is to get everyone involved, to help set a baseline and understand how we can improve together. So we don't want to discourage anyone who maybe doesn't feel that their firm is meeting these requirements. We want to encourage everyone to join in.
Yes.
And find out from each other how we can lift each other up and how we can all improve in these areas. So we hope that many firms will join in.
Yeah, everybody has to start from their own plateau. I believe that's the phrase. But a rising tide raises all boats. So the whole point is to get people engaged. It's not how well you score right now. it's looking toward the future that you think you want to help create. And we want to provide that opportunity to help everyone who's interested in changing the world in the way they think is best to have a hand in it. And this is one way that they can engage in making that change. Like I say, we are the change that we want to see, but if we don't get engaged, we'll never see it. We'll never reach that point of fruition in what we do. So hopefully this is a channel that a number of people can use to meet their personal goals about how they would like to change society. And we're open to everyone becoming involved.
I think that also addresses,
yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that also addresses a question asked earlier about publicly sharing each firm's information. And like you had said, it's not about ranking firms. And so we may at some point want to find a way to share aggregated data.
Yes.
But I think at least for now, like Tony said earlier, it's more about just getting a sense of just sharing about who is involved and who is taking on this commitment and helping each other in that way.
Yeah, as if anything, I expect the program to morph as we get more involved with it, and there will be changes. If it is decided a good thing to do and that people are willing to share more of that data for what they're doing personally as a firm, then that certainly will be considered, but it has to be some sort of consensus amongst participants, I think, before we start making public personal data. So our data will be held close to the vest. Okay, if that's a concern for people, it is not something we intend to publicly stick out there for everyone to see how well you're doing as opposed to someone else. It's just about an internal change, and that isn't necessarily something that we should be sharing unless the group of volunteers feel there's a way to share it and maybe be involved in how it should be shared. As I said, things will morph over time, and we have to always be flexible to see how things change so that we can be part of that change and not be left behind because we didn't get engaged.
Tony, it looks like Joanna has another question or comment. Go ahead, Joanna.
Certainly.
Yeah. Could you speak more about, I think one of the points said that BosNOMA will provide resources and references as needed for particular points. Could you speak more about what those might be?
Okay, that may change over time too, but let's say you wish to provide students and internships. We, of course, have a list of all colleges, historically Black colleges and universities that have programs in architecture, which may be able to provide internships, depending on the size of your firm. If you may have firms of a number of different offices, and they may be near one of these, at least 7 colleges that have architectural programs, we may be able to still arrange for an internship to be at one of your other offices. As I said, one of the main things is these bi-weekly meetings. How can we help one another? Okay, if there are other resources, like we may be garnering names of people who can come to your office and make equity, diversity, and inclusion webinars and seminars to be presented to your firm, which is one of the points that we have, that your firm has these internally. We're trying to begin to garner a list of the people we believe will be most appropriate to do that. We're not fostering anyone per se or saying anyone is better than that or the other, but if we have a list of firms that do this type of presentation, we definitely wish to share that with all of the volunteers.
Tony, if I could just add to that, Joanna, in partial answer to your question, that's also something that we're hoping to be able to support through the EDI network as well, in terms of understanding from individuals and from firms what topics you need assistance with and what topics we can bring to this community to support the goals of this program, as well as individual metrics and goals that that your firms may have set. And I'll just take a minute right now to let you know of 2 programming sessions that we have upcoming that are specifically responsive to some of what we heard in at our listening session in July. So in October, on October 21st, we are planning a joint session with the Small Practices Network, specifically on the topic of advancing equity in small firms, how to pool resources, how to take a look at your current practices and how to move the needle within small practices. That was a need that we heard there was a lot of interest in. And then in November, we'll be partnering with the LGBTQ network to talk about turning policy into practice. So specifically on the topic of inclusion and belonging, you can certainly write policies within your organization, but how do you change the culture within your firm, no matter what size of organization you are? So again, as topics are identified that are specifically related to this challenge, we'd love to hear what you'd love to hear from this group in terms of support and training. I'll also just highlight in the first quarter of 2022, we are planning a series on the intersection between practice and higher education and how we as firms and individuals can impact what students are learning about in school and who is moving into architecture schools. So I'm really excited about that series, and we'll have a lot more information about that soon too.
Okay.
Great,
So
thank you.
hopefully, as a knowledge community, we're providing information that you feel is useful. Like I said, this is our second year as a knowledge community for the BSA, and we are still looking for any way that we can to serve the architectural community in the Boston metropolitan area and beyond. If you have ideas of things you might consider as important topics that maybe we should look at to include within our programming for the upcoming year and beyond, please send an email to me or Rachel. Like I said, you have my email address in front of you, and any ideas that may come up, please forward them. We're always looking for that, looking for guest speakers if that may tie into something that is useful. Other people that we may need to know about that can help with DEI, etc. We're open to all types of ideas because that's how this community should be, a sharing of ideas and a collaboration amongst one another to serve all. So please, if you do come up with an idea any time of the year, send off an email, let us know so we can know if it's something we've already considered or something that we definitely should consider doing to benefit the local architectural community, etc. Okay. Well, I'm hoping there'll be a couple more questions, but if not, I don't want to hold anyone up, and I can give them back right now 13 minutes to your lunch hour to do with as you might feel best. Write out one of those emails and send them to me, whatever you feel is appropriate at this point. Any ideas that might be useful. We're happy to accept them, and we wish to thank you all for taking the time to participate. And please, if you can, take these ideas to the senior people within your firm. We will be making the PowerPoint available so that you can give them the link. Let them figure out if this is something they wish to pursue, and maybe pursue through you as their representative moving forward. That would be we will sincerely appreciate that. As I say, this subject will come up a few more times over the course of the next few months as we work our way towards January. And if you will all send me an email, I can send you updates as to how things are changing. So if you have an opportunity and you want to put your email address in the chat now, please do so. If you've already taken down my email address, then just use that. Whatever is easiest for you. And I will keep you all updated about any changes that are within the program that you can let other people know about. And hopefully I'll develop a interested parties list of people who seem to be interested in the program so that they all can receive updates as timely as we can get them out to you. And with that, unfortunately, I guess I'll be happy to let you go unless you have more questions.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tony, and to everyone at BosNOMA who has been a part of putting together this program. We're all really excited to launch it and to support it going forward. Thank you.
Okay. And once again, this recording will be available, and also the PowerPoint hopefully will be on our EDI network portion of the website within 48 hours, I guess. So if you wish to share it with anyone, it will be available to you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. And hopefully I'll be seeing all of you again in the near future. Take care.
Thank you.
Mhm.